Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for this Sing September event. I am Peter Bryant. I'm the BABS Director of Membership, and I am delighted to be joined this evening by Nightfall Quartet. Nightfall are the 2019 Labs Quartet bronze medalists. Ooh. Apologies, I was hearing myself in the background. Let me try that again. Yeah, Nightfall are the 2019 Labs Quartet bronze medalists and Sweet Adeline's Region 31 Quartet champions for 2019. Now they've pre-recorded their presentation and I'll be playing that shortly. And they will then be joining me live to answer any questions from you guys. So if you are watching us on the live stream, then please do post any questions that you have in our live chat on YouTube. Anything at all you want to ask Nightfall, this is your chance. We will try and get them all answered later on after the presentation. So without further ado, here is Nightfall's presentation on their ABC of Auditioning.
Hi everyone, welcome to our session on the ABCs of Auditioning. We're Nightfall and we're going to be spending the next half hour or so talking through our experiences of auditioning from both sides of the table. If you have any questions, then feel free to add them in the chat while you're watching this, and we will be doing a live Q&A at the end of this session. So first of all, to introduce you to the quartet. As I mentioned, we're Nightfall. We are the 2019 Sweet Adeline's Region 31 Quartet champions and the Labs bronze medalists. My name's Roz and I sing bass.
I'm Alex and I sing reed.
I'm Claire and I sing baritone.
And I'm Emma and I sing tenor. So before we start off, we wanted to share with you a little bit of our background and why we decided to do this session. So the way that Nightfall actually formed, myself and Alex were introduced by a mutual friend. We then went on a hunt for the other two parts and were lucky enough to find a baritone amongst our choruses at that time. So then the hunt was on for a bass. And because the search with our choruses wasn't successful, we decided actually we needed to go down the auditioning route. So we put some feelers out and we were able to find Roz, our bass. Then we did a couple of rounds of contests. So we entered Region 31 in 2017 and then the European contest. But later on that year, we found ourselves in a position where we needed to find a new baritone. So the hunt was on again. So that's pretty much why we decided to share this session with you, because we have done 2 rounds of auditions in roughly 4 years.
So you might be wondering, what are the ABCs of auditioning? So Emma's kind of explained our background. So obviously I've only seen it from one side, but everyone else has seen either planning and preparing an audition or taking it as well. So firstly, we're going to give you our A, which is admin. So admin, firstly, we'd like to start with advertising. So girls, how did you start to advertise that you were needing a new quartet member?
So I suppose in the beginning, we weren't 100% sure how to go about it. And we were lucky enough to attend a Region 31 event where Love Notes were the educators for the weekend. And of course, they've been through this kind of situation before when they were looking for a new bass. And one of the things they said was just get out there and let it be known that you're looking for someone. That was, I suppose, the first thing. And we thought, actually, we don't necessarily need to just speak to friends or chorus members or email choruses. We could just do an advert, we could put it on Facebook, we could put it on Instagram, we could share it with the region and with labs. So I suppose that was the first step, was, yeah, let it be known that you are actively looking for a new member.
And I think that was the key thing, was just like the power of social media. Like I had a small group of barbershoppers on my Facebook, but Emma has got a lot of barbershop friends. So it's like, we need to tap into that. So
yeah, I would definitely agree. It's about sort of broadening your circle. I know when you were first advertising for a bass, I don't think you would have naturally thought of me. I lived at the other end of the country, but also you never know who's looking. So definitely as an auditionee, if you're interested in joining a quartet, let that be known as well. But as the quartet or trio with a missing member, definitely kind of expand that search wider than you might have otherwise thought, because you don't know, even if people are in quartets, you don't know what their situation was. When I first joined Nightfall, my previous quartet was just coming to an end, but you wouldn't necessarily have known that. So yeah, definitely kind of broaden it as wide as possible.
I think we also, I also emailed quite a few of the choruses just to let their members know in case people weren't on social media. So I just dropped sort of a round robin email to all the chorus directors just to say we were looking and could they pass the information on to their members.
Yeah, as a potential member though, if you think you're ready and you think you might be wanting to, dip your toe into the quartetting world, let it be known. Speak to people when you're at events and just get yourself out there, because you don't know what opportunities there might be until you kind of have a go for them, really.
Afterglow is a great way to try out a new quartet lineup as well. Just see if you can sing with people. So before I auditioned with Nightfall, I actually had a sing with Alex and our previous baritone at a BABS Afterglow. So that was a great way just to test it out.
Yeah, sing some tags. That's always a good start.
So once we've got kind of that advertising out there, what next? Where do we start in terms of looking for that next member once the advertisement's out there in the world?
So the key thing really was, I'd sung with a few people from my chorus and, we'd had some fun in sort of like fun quartets, but it wasn't what I wanted. I did want to go and like compete and improve as a singer and get out there and do competitions. So I think I knew what I wanted and I had to find the rest of you who also wanted the same thing. So I think a key thing is for you to be like true to yourself and what goals are you looking for, what are you willing to commit, like time wise, or get your head around what you want, because you have to fit and get other people that are on the same wavelength as you. So that was a key thing. And obviously then finding Emma, she wanted that, and we sort of took it from there, didn't we? Emma had some conversations about what we were looking for.
Absolutely. And I think when we were introduced, those friends kind of knew straight away that I would want a competing quartet, not just a for fun quartet. So they knew that match was going to be there in terms of those sort of long-term goals.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think that's something to be really clear on, actually, when you're starting to plan your search, is knowing maybe what the long-term goal could be. Is it a competing quartet? Is it a tea and cake quartet? Are you wanting to just have some fun with people that live locally, or are you willing to travel and really put that extra time commitment in?
I think it's also worth doing a research beforehand about the people who are advertising or the people who are applying, whichever side it is, and just try and get a sense of who they are as a person, what their previous experience is. If you've got any mutual friends, definitely kind of tap them up, find out as much as possible. We are no strangers to internet stalking. So if you're auditioning with an existing quartet, then do as much preparation as possible. Look up their previous recordings, any videos online. But equally, when we were looking for a new baritone, each of our applicants, we did a quick internet stalk. You get to know a bit about them as their character, what sort of people they're friends with, who you might know, and kind of get an idea of what they're like. And again, if they've sung in any previous quartets, then we definitely watched all those recordings.
Yeah. And another key thing I think was we wanted to make sure that we all, time is tight. We wanted to audition people sort of on the same wavelength. So a key thing for us was sort of anyone who applied, we obviously said it out in the advert that we were looking for a competing quartet. And then anyone who did express interest, we put a questionnaire together with sort of some questions for the applicants to answer that kind of would give us some more information about what they were looking for and what type of person they were, so that would help us then sort of decide who we were going to audition and whether it was worth it or not.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to overload audition days. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit, but I think you really have to prioritize, particularly if you're lucky enough to have a lot of applicants. You need to find a way to prioritize and just pick those who you think are most likely to be a good fit, and take those to audition. So don't feel like you have to audition everybody who applies to you, because you'll be there for like a year.
as an auditionee, it can be quite daunting. You get a questionnaire maybe, but it's better to have that experience at that stage and know that that's what the quartet want. Have a bit of soul searching yourself. What do I want to give? What do I want to achieve in this journey? Because, you know, we all hope that it's a long journey together. And if we're not on the same wavelength, it's not going to be the most fun journey. So really do that soul searching. Do I want to give, you know, however much time this quartet's asking? Is it a day, an evening, a week, a day, a month, whatever that is? Am I willing to do that and the homework? Or actually, do I just want to sing and I'm quite happy to come along and have a sing and a tea, a cake, and maybe a beer or a Prosecco at the end, and, you know, not compete, and that's fine. Just knowing yourself what you want puts you in a better position to find that quartet.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then just continuing to the kind of planning for the auditions, as Alex said, you know, the questionnaire for us was the first round of that, and helped us kind of prioritize who we thought would work out. But then you have to think really clearly about what you want them to do as part of the audition as well. Like, what songs do you want them to prepare that's going to show off their capabilities the best, but also you don't want to like include a really easy song if actually you're planning to work on some like really challenging contest stuff. So it needs to be representative of what you want to be as a quartet, and what they're going to have to live up to when they join you.
So from an auditionee's perspective, you know, there's so much you can do to prepare. You know, you'll get given the music, you know, hopefully some tracks, maybe the sheet music, depends what you're given, but learning it to the best of your ability, put the work in, and put the work in as if you would when it's real quartet. There's no point now putting in, you know, learning it to an extreme that you're never going to put that work in again. You have to make it feel as real as it will be going forward. So put that work in, give yourself as much chance as you can up front. That's in your control. So give yourself the best chance you can by learning your stuff, because that's an easy win, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. Have been on that side of it as well. You want to put your best self forward, but it's also important to make sure that that's something that you can live up to when you actually join the quartet.
Claire, didn't you do a bit of YouTube stalking the other way and watched our contest sets?
Yeah, so I knew that the songs we were going to use for audition were the songs that you'd taken to the previous contest. And I thought, well, that's how you're going to sing them. So I've got teach tracks, which are quite often not how the interp is. So once I'd got the dots, I then rehearsed against the YouTube videos from contest, because I thought, well, if I can get this interp, then that's going to help me, because that's how these ladies are going to sing it. So you can do it both ways. You can have a look at how the potential quartet has performed in the past. You know, you've got the individuals' names, similar to Ross saying we could internet stalk potential auditionees. You know, you can get a feel of what these people might be like in advance, just to help you. And it might help your nerves on the day. You feel you know a bit about these people, because it's an unusual experience to go into an audition.
I was actually really impressed by that you've taken the trouble to not only learn the songs that we provided, but to learn our interp of them. And I think it made the whole audition a lot smoother. You know, we weren't having to teach you that stuff at the time. It showed that you were willing to put that background work in yourself. Is it worth us talking about the actual planning, the logistics of the day? I know we're going to talk about the audition day itself in a moment, but kind of as preparation for that in advance, I think it's really important to think through, you know, what kind of location, venue you're going to be in for the auditions, somewhere hopefully free from different distractions, somewhere probably in the same geographical location as you're likely to be rehearsing. I know when I joined the quartet, I was coming from London up to Nottingham to audition. So, you know, it's a fair distance, but that for me was part of getting a feel for whether this quartet would work for me. Doing that journey, I got a sense of whether I'd be willing to do that, you know, one weekend a month for auditions, for rehearsals. So I think that's quite important, that it is quite representative of what the ongoing experience is going to be like. And you also want to think about kind of how long each session is going to be, all of your communications with the auditionees in advance to make sure they've got everything they need. when we were auditioning for baritones, sending quite complex driving instructions to get to Alex's. Yeah, I'll wait to that stuff.
From the auditionee though, making sure you know where you're going. It seems such a silly thing, but take the stress out. You know, make sure you've researched, well, is it doable? Is it drivable? If I'm going to be going every week, is it sensible for me to be doing a 3-hour commute each way on top of my daily life? You know, have a look at that, because that's all part of it, as much as learning the songs and everything else, the whole experience. So have a look, see if that works for you as well, and make sure you know where you're going.
I think one of the other things when you're planning these sort of audition days is to make sure you don't overload yourself. We found when we did the bass auditions, I think we did 3 on the first day, and we were absolutely shattered because you are spending so much attention and really focusing on each individual, that we really were grateful that we planned in a bit of downtime between each audition to just have a cup of tea. And I think we pretty much sat fairly quiet actually, just because we needed to just decompress a little bit to make sure that we were ready for the next person coming in. I think that's really critical. You don't want to go into the next audition thinking about the previous one. You want to be completely reset and ready for the next person who's going to walk through the door.
Yeah, I think it's really important having, you know, put a lot of thought into that schedule for the day or the weekend, and making sure, as you say, that you've got enough time between the two. Part of it is that downtime. Part of it is enough time to have a little chat about what's just happened, because you will naturally want to have that sort of instant feedback from each other. But also it's a chance to reset vocally, so that you are treating each audition as fresh. You don't want whoever you're auditioning last to suffer because your voices are really tired from earlier in the day. So you need that chance to reset both mentally and vocally in between each one. And also allow more time than you think you need, because they're bound to overrun, and the last thing you want is your kind of next auditionee waiting and hearing the previous one and then not having that kind of reset time in between. So that's really important.
Yeah, and we also time in, didn't we, as a trio, like before any of the auditions, so that we could warm up properly and make sure that we were on form. And like Ros said, between each audition, we just sort of re-warmed up, just as a trio again.
From the auditionee's perspective, Claire, I mean, I know I've been an auditionee as well, but Claire, do you want to kind of talk us through how that worked on the day?
For me, and the girls will attest, I'm an early bird. So it was about an hour's drive, so I spent the hour warming up in the car. I'm not sure my husband appreciated that so much, but he drove me up because we were on our way somewhere else. Plenty of warm-up time in advance, as much as you can. You know, I tend to sing along to songs, and that's how I warmed up in the car, but made myself as vocally ready. I was ridiculously early, so we went for another drive, which set up the tone of me being early. But it was just on the day, just being myself, being open to this experience. From my perspective, what have I got to lose? From an auditioning, you're walking in, you currently don't have a quartet, or you don't have this quartet, so you don't have anything to lose. If it goes wrong, it goes wrong. You're human, you know, be yourself in it, go in with an open mind and see what happens. But just, and as difficult as it is to try to relax during it and be yourself, but these are people you're potentially going to be spending a lot of time with. So make as much of the experience as you can, and you'll learn something, even if it's not an experience that takes you onto your quartet. You've learned something about the people that you're singing with, about how you respond to that reaction in that situation, and will help you going forwards in your singing career.
I think that's really valuable advice. Also from for the quartet looking for a member, anything you can do to help the auditionee feel at ease with you is really helpful. So bear in mind that they may have had a long journey. It's useful having some warm-up time together at the start of each of the auditions, so that they can get a sense of your existing sound. Also just little things like offering them a glass of water when they arrive, something like that just really softens the tone and makes it a less scary experience.
But I think as well, as an auditionee, not only are you being auditioned, you're also getting a feel of the other people, and it's as much about the voice and how you feel singing as it is how comfortable you are with the people. So you're don't forget to think about the other people in the room and how this might feel going forwards.
So I think like the big thing when you've done all the auditions, obviously we recorded them all so that afterwards we could listen back to them, which is really helpful. And I think the biggest things that we learned from having that 5th year was really helpful, and going through 2 rounds of auditions. Well, actually, we did more than 2 rounds. We did 3 rounds. Was so we didn't want to rush a decision. We wanted to think about it, have time to reflect on it, re-listen to the recordings. And I think a key message is like not taking someone because they're the best of the bunch. And we found that when we were doing our auditions for a baritone, we had a couple of round of auditions because we didn't quite get, although we did audition some lovely people who we really got on with and had really good merits, it just didn't quite fit with what we were looking for. So we actually decided not to take anyone in the first round and then re-advertised and did another round. And you know, when you're there at the time, you just think, oh, just take. So there can be that pressure just to take anyone, but got to just sort of step back and think, long term, is that the right decision? So don't rush out and make a decision or just take someone because they're the best of the bunch if they're not quite right. And get advice off other people. You know, you can send your recordings to other people and see what they think.
Yeah, definitely. I know, Alex, you mentioned that we had a 5th year when I auditioned, and also for our first round of baritone auditions. The second round we didn't, I think, because we were a bit clearer with what we wanted and a bit more comfortable with how the day would run. But we did send the recordings of our, you know, what we thought was our best choice, or best couple of choices. We did send those recordings to our regular coach to kind of get her input on it as well, just to have that external perspective as well.
Yeah. And then when we decided on who we were going to pick, obviously we had to then send out feedback emails to the other auditionees. And actually they were really nice to send because we were able to give all really nice positive feedback to everyone who'd sung with us because they had all been great in their own ways. And that was a really nice experience. We did make a lot of, you know, new friends through the audition process, so it was a positive thing for the auditionees as well, I think, even though they didn't end up being all bass or baritone.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you are the auditionee who perhaps didn't get into the quartet, it's really difficult not to take that to heart, but you wouldn't have been invited to audition if they didn't think that you were a potential candidate. So I think the message is always that it's not that you're not good enough, it's that it wasn't quite the right fit. And it being in a quartet is about so much more than whether you're a good singer. I know, Emma, you've said in the past that you could put 4 like brilliant voices together.
Yeah, you could put 4 champions together and their voices could be so different that they place last. Like, it would be terrible. So yeah, you can never sort of just go with, oh, I know that person, I know they're a great singer, let's put them in a quartet. You know, there's still this process to work through where the 4 voices have got to be the right 4 voices.
And I think a key thing as well is it might not be that they're exactly right at the audition, but you've got to see what the potential is and how as a quartet you're going to grow and go forward together. You know, so we've all got things we've got to work on, but you've got to look at that sort of future opportunities with the new voice that you're taking on.
That's so true, yeah, absolutely. And also I think as the potential unsuccessful auditionee, don't feel awkward around the trio or the quartet when you see them again, because we've made some really great friends through the people who we met in our auditions. So yeah, try not to take it personally and try not to feel awkward about it. Just be happy that you've made new connections and new barbershop friends.
I love being able to see those people that we auditioned at convention and, you know, say hi and maybe sing a tag with them, and, you know, it's great.
Yeah.
There's one thing about the audition day itself that I don't think that we've covered yet. I know we sort of glossed over it earlier, but thinking about the actual exercises that you're going to do in the audition, and what you and why, like what you want to see from the auditionees through those exercises, and also thinking about who, like what your roles are as the trio on the day, and who's going to lead what. I think for us it was quite important that you know, each of us had a role of some sort, had a speaking part of some sort, because we are the kind of quartet where there's quite an equal dynamic. We all pitch in rehearsals and stuff. So that had to be something that the auditionee was going to be comfortable with. So making sure that each of us was running an exercise, or I think we kind of fell into those roles quite naturally, and you kind of get into the habit of it over the first couple of rehearsals, auditions. But in hindsight, that was really useful, and I think definitely for us kind of factoring in giving feedback to the auditionee as part of the audition process, and seeing how well they could adapt, how coachable they were, how willing they were to take criticism or feedback from other quartet mates, because that is quite an interesting dynamic. All your feedback as a quartet isn't always going to come from external coaches. Sometimes it's easier to hear those things from external coaches, but that is, we do a lot of that stuff internally. So for us, that was really important, to make sure that dynamic was there with each of the quartet members.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, from my point of view, it's good that we had prepared all that up front, because actually I was really nervous going into doing the auditions. So I was there as the lead auditioning other people, but I was still really nervous, so much so that I had a nervous giggling fit and couldn't stop. So, you never know what's going to happen. So it's just as nerve-wracking for the auditioners as well as the auditionees. So it is good to prepare up front.
We forget that as auditionees, you go in very nervous, thinking, wow, these three people have been out and, in Nightfall have won medals, and I've never won a medal in a quartet, so they must know what they're doing, and they're really good at this, and I'm not really very good, but I'm just going to have a go. But actually, remember, they want us to do well. When you walk into an audition, the other three members or the other two, they want you to be that person. That they're looking to find that. They're all on your side. So, trying to remember that, as much as it's difficult at the time, that you're all in the same position and everyone's going to be nervous.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think anything you can do to make yourself feel more comfortable, even down to just wearing comfy clothes. Like, this isn't a job interview. You don't have to dress to impress. It's got to be putting forward the real you, because that's the you that they're going to be rehearsing with going forwards, competing with going forwards. And that works both sides. As the auditioning quartet looking for a new member, you need to present the genuine you as well. But yeah, kind of just being as comfortable as possible is really important.
I think that leads quite nicely onto our B of auditioning. So our B is to be bold. So being bold, putting yourself out there, knowing what you want and really going for that as an auditionee, for me, is what Be Bold is all about.
I think it was key for me though, because that was the whole reason why I started the whole audition process, and why Nightfall was formed was, well, for me and Emma really, was because we were bold about what we wanted, and we recognised that we weren't getting that in with the people who we already knew. So we did have to put ourselves out there and, grab the opportunity for ourselves. Let's make them opportunities. So we did.
Absolutely. And for me, I was at the stage where I'd not sung barbershop for a few years. I'd had a bit of a break. So it was a case of reaching out to friends and being like, oh, I'm ready to come back. I want a new quartet, but I want a good quartet. I don't want to sing for fun. Like, who do you know? Who's looking for a quartet? And that was like the match made in heaven, really, I suppose, for me and Alex, because we were both looking for exactly the same thing at that point in time, which is great.
But to be fair to you, Emma, you were bold and took a chance on me, because I'd never sung in a competing quartet before. So that was kind of you.
Yeah, I think there's an element of be a bit fearless and give everybody a try, because somebody might surprise you. And I'd heard from people that I trusted that you were a great singer. So I thought, why not? I'm going to make the effort, go to an event that you were already attending. We're just going to find a little room and have a sing together and just see if we have a combination that had potential.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth going in with an open mind, as you're saying, Emma. Sometimes the person you expect to come out on top of auditions isn't always the person who does, and people surprise you. So definitely try and approach each candidate, I guess, with an open mind.
Yeah.
For me, I think part of Be Bold is kind of be aspirational as well. Be bold with what you want out of a quartet on both sides. As a quartet, I think you need to be really clear on what you want to achieve, and you need someone who's going to add to that experience for you. We sang with some great singers who were just sort of a little bit earlier on in their journey, and we wanted someone, when we were auditioning for Claire as baritone, we wanted someone who could hit the ground running with us and really help us kind of progress to the next stage. It's obviously different depending what stage of your quartet journey you're at on both sides. So when you're auditioning for me, I know, Alex, it was your first quartet.
Yeah.
I don't know how you felt about you probably therefore weren't as worried about people's previous experience, but you need to be quite clear with what you're looking for, I think.
I wasn't into previous experience because I'd had none, but I was still very clear that I wanted a competing quartet, and I was willing to put that work in to have that, and I wanted other members that were also willing to put in the hard work and the time and the effort. Because obviously at the end of the day it is an expensive hobby, and it also takes up a lot of time, so you need to be on the same page. So
I think one of the interesting discussions that we often had was about things like, yes, we decided we wanted to be a competing quartet, but we had choices of organisation, and you know, we wanted to reach out to people from everywhere, and we were obviously keen to be both the Sweet Adelines quartet and to also compete in labs as well, because that was an experience that I'd never done before, and I was really keen to do it. So I think finding someone as well that is willing to compete in both organisations, and there's like extra cost and extra time and that kind of thing that factors in as well. And then obviously with Sweet Adelines, there's always the risk that you could win and have to go to international. So you need someone that's going to be willing to go on that journey with you as well, because again, that's a very different thing.
Yeah, because you've got to prepare for that up front. There's no, you know,
there's no point in taking someone who doesn't want to go to America and sing, you know.
Yeah. I mean, for instance, when we auditioned Roz, you know, at the time you lived in London, Roz, and that's a 4-hour journey from where we were. So we had quite long discussions about whether that was going to work for us all as a quartet. Luckily it does.
Yeah.
And then he
helps when I moved a bit closer. But just going back to what Emma was saying about kind of competing across both organisations, I think that is something that actually really appealed to me when I was auditioning with Nightfall, that we had those aspirations. When we started out, I had just accepted a director position with Green Street Blues, so I was directing a labs chorus, and it was really important to me that I was kind of representing in that organisation as well. As someone looking for a quartet as well, I think it's really important to be bold in what you're looking for. And sometimes a lot of us get imposter syndrome. You know, it's really easy to think that you're not good enough, particularly to join an established quartet, but you never know until you put yourself out there. So I think be bold with going for these opportunities, and you know, the quartet will decide if they want you or not.
I mean, it's about being bold, being brave. I had no idea if I could sing at this level. I had no idea if I could, you know, I had what it took. But I thought, you know what, I feel I'm ready at this point to have a go. And what have I got to lose? I'm going to go along, and if it's not right, it's not right. But I'm willing to give it a go, put the work in, and see if I could sing at this kind of level. You know, it's not something I've done before, so you know, give it a go, see what happens, and yeah, and the rest, as I say, is history. But I just had to take the plunge.
Definitely.
We're glad you did, Claire.
Yeah. So another thing about being bold is on the day is being bold. So don't be frightened about it. We'll all get nervous, but try and like channel that into something positive. You know, you don't have to be perfect. You want to show what you can do. You want to try and simulate what it's going to be like in a real rehearsal. So don't worry about messing up. Don't worry about asking for clarification. Like you say, you want it to be a relaxed atmosphere so you can get the most out of the audition. So yeah, just be bold and don't worry about it. Show what you've got to give.
Yeah, I think on the day it's also really important to have, I know this is going back to the audition day, but it's really important to have some time to chat as well as just sing together. As Alex said, you know, you need to be bold and be yourself. So it's really important to get to know each other, have a chance to ask questions on both sides. And part of that is being really upfront about expectations. So Alex mentioned earlier that it's, you know, barbershop is an expensive hobby, and that is totally true. So I think you need your potential members, prospective members, to know that from the outset. Otherwise, it's never going to work out. So we were quite upfront with what our expectations were around, you know, rehearsal time, how regularly we rehearsed, what the time commitment was, where we rehearsed, so that people could work out what the travel expenses would be. You know, like even down to who hosts rehearsals, who feeds you at rehearsals, it all adds up. You know, thinking about stage outfits, thinking about if you're going to be a competing quartet, then registration costs, and Emma mentioned about, particularly in Sweet Adelines or in BABS, then the potential to go to America and do international contests. You know, that all adds up as well. So being really upfront about what your expectations are as a quartet, so that those who are auditioning with you can decide whether that's right for them or not.
So I think we're on to our final of our ABCs, and that is connections.
So I think a key thing for connections, sort of like I mentioned earlier, was obviously the audition day is just one day, and you've got to look at the potential with the auditionees, of how you're going to fit with them going forward, what their opportunities are with them developing with the quartet. So the audition day isn't just the end of it. You know, you've got to look at those things and see how you think it's going to go. We decided to do a trial period when we took on Claire, and we discussed that with you, Claire, didn't we? And we both decided on that because you were wanting to see how it went with us, as well as us wanting to see how it went with you. So we're very upfront and open about that. And it was great, really, because it sort of gives, there's a bit of less pressure then for both parties if you decide you want her to get out of it.
Yeah, I think obviously you go into this hoping that it's going to be the right fit and assuming that everything's going to work out really well, but it's definitely worth, I think, having that conversation up front and scheduling in a time for a trial period. I think we said 3 rehearsals, which is roughly 3 months, the way that we work. But it's better to put that in and assume that it's going to be a nice conversation and it's going to be great going forward, than to sort of commit forever and then find that someone's having to pull out because they'll feel like they're letting everyone down. But actually, you can't know until you get into your normal kind of rehearsal cycle how you're going to work together, whether you all have kind of similar ways of dealing with things. So it's useful just having that kind of check-in, and it also reassures both sides that everyone's happy with the relationship. Even if you are continuing, it's nice having that kind of confirmation, like affirmation.
Definitely. I think in those first 3 rehearsals, we tried to make sure that we had a rehearsal that was just us. Then we had some coaching, and so we kind of split it up and make sure that we covered the entire spectrum. I mean, I think the first rehearsal, Claire, was actually like individual PVIs. It was like mega pressure, and I think we were all
the deep end with romance.
yeah, PVIs with romance. I mean, how more intense can you get? So if we were ever going to scare someone off, we found exactly the way to do it.
Yeah, you get the call that you know, we'd like to take you forwards. Can you get next Friday off work because we're going to London to have PVIs with Rob Mamps in the afternoon? It's like, yes, I hope so. But don't forget as an auditionee that it's just as much about how you feel, you know, in this kind of provisional period as it is how the rest of the quartet feel, because you're going to spend a lot of time with these people. You know, that's the hope that going forwards, and you're going to have some of the best times and potentially some of the worst times. You've got to share. You'll be sharing your life experiences. Whatever happens in your life, these people are there with you through those good times and the bad times, and you need to be able to be open with them. And that's the period where it's I don't want to say it's maybe not the right way, but it's the easiest time for you to say, look, actually, it's not for me. And that's not a bad thing if you have to say that, because you're saving yourself a lot of potential grief and heartache down the line if you make that call that it isn't right for you. I mean, we were lucky that we weren't in that position, but that's the great thing about having that bit of time just to see how it's going.
That's the key thing with like making a quartet like you do through Audition when you don't know people. Obviously, sort of straight away you can sort of tell how the sound is, but it's more about the characters and the personalities. That takes a lot longer to gel and sort of understand how people react to situations. So that actually can be the sort of longer term thing that you need to just figure out. You know, so
that's absolutely key. And as your journey continues, even after this sort of audition and initial period, you'll still end up in situations that are new. So you really have to have the trust there with the other three people, that they'll come on this journey with you, and that they're taking the time to learn you as a person as well as a singer.
yeah.
I think that's a really nice way to wrap up our C for connection.
Yeah. So what we also promised you was that we'd give you our top tips. So each of us have got one top thing that we'd like to impart as our kind of nugget of wisdom. If you've got one thing, I think, Emma, what would yours be?
Mine would be expect the unexpected to happen. We never realised when we went into auditions that actually we would be really nervous as the auditioning quartet. I think Alex mentioned earlier she got the giggles. Could she stop? No. Could we stop her? No. We just had to move on to a different task because it just happens. It was like this nervous energy just bubbled up. I think there was one point where like I just completely forgot my words, or I sang a completely wrong part, and it was just, you know, you can be as prepared as humanly possible, but some things can just happen, but it's absolutely okay, it's normal, it's natural, and it's going to happen. I think the kind of people that we are, we just kind of laughed it off and moved on and changed tack, if you like. So yeah, expect the unexpected to happen, and it's absolutely okay.
Okay, Alex, have you got one for us?
Yeah, so my top tip is to be yourself. So from an auditioner's point of view, if you want the auditionee to feel as relaxed as possible, so therefore you need to be yourself and relax. From an auditionee's point of view, if you're relaxed in yourself, you're going to get the best out of the audition and show your best. And at the end of the day, you are who you are, so there's no point hiding it.
Right. So my top tip is enjoy yourself, have fun. You know, at the end of all this we're talking about, it is a hobby. We might forget that at times, but you know, we're doing this to improve, but to have fun with some friends. So enjoy the experience. It might be the most frightening thing you ever do, but enjoy it.
I think mine is not to be so worried about what the other people think of you, that you forget to take notice of how you feel in the moment and what you think of them. So I know I was auditioning with a couple of quartets when I first joined Nightfall, and certainly kind of the first experiences, I was so worried about how my voice was coming across to them, or how my personality was coming across to them, and what they thought of me and whether I was good enough, that I forgot to actually notice when we were singing together how I felt about it. And it was only through kind of auditioning with a couple of quartets that I managed to kind of notice that difference and work out the one that I felt most comfortable in. But yeah, don't be so worried about what they think about you that you forget to take note of what you think of them. So I think that probably wraps up our session for now. We're going to move over to Q&A now, if there have been any questions that have come in while we've been doing this. So if you haven't sent them in advance, hopefully you've sent them in on the chat while we've been speaking through all this, and we'll see you in a moment for the questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Nightfall. That was a great presentation. I am now very excited to be joined by Nightfall live. Here they are. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for putting together that presentation. Really, really interesting. So yeah, we have had a couple of questions through on the live chat. If you are watching live on YouTube and you have a question for Nightfall, pop it in the live chat right now. This is probably your last chance. Before we get to those, I have a couple of questions. Firstly, you talked a lot about kind of open-mindedness and expecting the unexpected, which I really, really like. So I'm curious kind of how far you would consider taking the open-mindedness idea. Like, did you think about casting the net beyond barbershops? Did you think about maybe bringing somebody in who had singing experience but not barbershop experience? Would you have considered becoming a mixed quartet, for example? How far would you have taken the open-mindedness idea?
Who wants to go first? Emma, you look like you're about to talk.
Yeah, I'll go first. So in terms of being open-minded, I think we were definitely looking for a female quartet. The goal for me and Alex was sort of, the long-term goal was always like, wouldn't it be amazing to sing on an international stage? So for us, it obviously therefore had to be for women. So yeah, in that respect, I suppose a little closed off. And of course, Roz has her mixed quartet already as well, so that would have closed that door on that one, I think. But yeah, in terms of casting the net wider, absolutely. I think we wanted to start within the barbershop community, but if we hadn't have been successful with either our search for a bass or a baritone, we certainly would have looked further afield. Yeah, absolutely. I think when Love Notes were looking for a replacement bass, they found Stephanie from outside of barbershop, and you know, what a fantastic choice they made there. So yeah, anything's possible.
I think Emma just covered it all.
Smashed it.
Absolutely smashed it. Yeah.
I think we didn't need to go outside of barbershop in the end, but I definitely would have been open to that. You know, a great singer is a great singer, and you can learn the barbershop way. But yeah, it was about finding the right person. We were lucky that we found that relatively easily within barbershop, but I definitely would have been open to going wider.
Excellent. Okay, so we did have a question from Kip Buckner. I believe he knows one of you guys quite well. So yeah, Kip wants to know, was it more of a priority for you to pick the person that you got along with more, or somebody that fit your sound best? Obviously, it's important to have both, but what was your main priority?
What a great question.
By
great,
yeah.
I mean difficult to answer.
Yeah. It is hard as well because, sorry, go on.
It's a really tricky one, because I think everyone that we met, we got on with really, really well. So yeah, in terms of a personality fit, we crushed it in that respect. You know, we got on with absolutely everyone. I think we asked the question, you know, do you drink tea? It had to be a yes, and everybody answered yes. You know, and what's your tipple at the end of a rehearsal? Is it a prosecco or a gin? You're in. It's fine.
Asked me what my favourite wine was, and I think I said prosecco.
So that was absolutely fine. So there was all those kind of little personality things that naturally came about from having conversations. So I suppose from that point onwards, it had to fall to which was the correct vocal fit for us. We were really fortunate actually that we had some really, really great singers, and we had the luxury to be able to really pick down into the detail and say, what is it about that voice or that's actually going to work with us and for where we are now. I think you can, you know, I've always said you could put 4 gold medalists in a quartet. It might not be a great quartet. It might be stunning, but there's no guarantees. So I think it's finding the right 4 is always got to be the main priority.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, because we kind of haven't had to prioritize one or the other. We were lucky enough that we found both, but I think also we were in a position that we held out to find both. I think we mentioned in the earlier presentation that when we were looking for baritone, we did a round of auditions and didn't find quite the right fit. We found some people who we got on with brilliantly, but didn't find quite, weren't quite at the right stage vocally for us. So that probably answers your question, Kip, in that we found a great personality, but we were looking for the great voice as well. So we, as I say, we were in the, I think we felt quite strongly about that it had to work on both fronts. Yeah. So we held out, we did another round of auditions to find Claire, to find kind of the best of both worlds. For me, I think probably voice edges it just a little bit, but it's also, I think, was important to all of us that the kind of quartet we ideally wanted was one where we were the best of friends as well, because you do spend so much time together as a quartet. So they'd have to be pretty high up on both if we were gonna take anyone, I think.
And it's hard to judge in a way from one audition if you are gonna get on. It's just sort of a little bit easier to judge how the sound is and how it can develop, but obviously with personalities that's a bit harder.
Exactly what I was going to say. I think that's why it was good to have, whether you call it a probation, a provisional period, whatever you want to call those, however long you put it in, that was when you can really tell not only how you sing together, but how you might work and each other's work ethic, because it can be quite different how you might work for an audition, how you might work in the real world. So I think that was really important to have that extra time.
Awesome. Kip also says, is this whole feeding the quartet thing only a UK thing? I've been in quartets my whole life and we never get food. Kip, take it. Food is very important.
I'm not singing if there's no food.
Yeah, no. That's what it's all for.
My other quartet, Scandal, my mixed quartet, we actually did a session for Region 31 over the summer, and a sort of Ask Me Anything session, and my tenor said on there that Scandal were actually thinking of launching a Scandal cookbook because we eat so well at our quartet rehearsal weekends. We're lucky to have at least 2 amazing cooks in that quartet, but yeah, it is all about the food. And I think a lot of that is that it's about having that downtime together as a quartet. We I know Nightfall as well as Scandal, we come together for a whole weekend at a time. So it's about working hard during the times where you're actively rehearsing, but the quartet bond is about so much more than that, and it's really helped by having that downtime together, having the evenings together, cooking a meal together, having a few drinks together in the evening, and that for me is what creates a quartet that doesn't just feel like hard work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it actually helps you on the contest stage as well, because if one of the things we're scored on is like your rapport as a group, and it's pretty easy to tell when a quartet are like really, really good friends, and it's also really easy to tell when it's just like we hate each other and we're going to break up after this contest. And it's like, yeah, be friends and score points. Definitely.
Yeah, you can stick 4 like gold medal searchers together, and they might create a great sound, but they won't have that rapport. And I think, as you say, that is really obvious on stage. And also in, sorry, I'm talking loads here, do chime in, the rest of you if you want to. But I think also in those unexpected situations that we were talking about, if you have got to know each other as friends in that kind of on that personal level, it really helps you support each other through those times where you might react differently. Like we have had big discussions going into contest about, this is not on the topic of auditioning, but going into contest about how we each handle stress, and that has certainly come up at different points, different situations. But if you have really kind of bonded as a quartet together, then you can notice how people are reacting to stuff and kind of help them through that.
Definitely, it's really important.
I think that actually links back to the food question, to be honest, Ros, because we have to put in the plan when Alex is going to get to eat.
Yeah,
it's pretty important. If she doesn't know when her next meal's come in, we've got a stressful situation.
It's a big worry.
Yeah, I am that person in my quartet as well. I'm fully on board with that, Alex.
Yeah.
So yeah, Kip, you're missing out if you're not eating together as a quartet.
Yeah.
We have the best food. It's great.
Cool. Yeah, earlier on in the presentation, you were talking about like the actual day, and I think Roz, you said when you did your audition, there was a fifth person in the room, like being a fifth ear. How useful did you find that? Would you do that again?
Yeah, we did actually. So when I first auditioned, we had obviously the three of them plus a fifth ear, and I didn't have anything to do with that fifth person during the audition, so they were just a silent observer basically. But I know that they gave feedback then to the others after I'd left, presumably. And I think, I mean, I'll let you guys talk about it in a moment, but it worked well enough for you that we chose to do that again when we were auditioning for a baritone.
Yeah.
So our first round of baritone auditions, we had Tanya from Finesse, who was kind of our quartet mentor at the time. So she came and was our fifth ear for that. Helped that she was a baritone as well, so we got to warm up with her and stuff. And that was really useful because she was able to spot stuff that the rest of us might not have picked up on. She played more of an active role in that round of auditions than we had in the bass auditions. So we actually got her to do like a little bit of coaching and change our lineup and stuff, because for us, we wanted to see how the auditioning person would respond to that as well. That was quite an important part for us. But I think the second time that we were auditioning for baritones, we didn't, because we'd learned quite a lot about that stuff from the first round with Tanya. But we did take recordings and got that kind of objective opinion on them as well.
Yeah, I think the first round that we did with Tanya, it helped us to really understand what we were looking for. So once we went into the second round of auditions, we already had that in the front of our minds in terms of what kind of voice we were looking for, what kind of stage of their vocal abilities we wanted them to be at, so that they could actually just come and work on similar things with us.
Yeah. And I think the first time when we auditioned for Roz for the bass, obviously we'd never done an audition before, so we wanted that fifth ear to kind of take that pressure off us, because we didn't know what it was going to be like. We didn't know if we'd be able to take it all in, you know, whilst sort of worrying about what we had to do on the day, whether we were going to be able to kind of concentrate on how we felt singing with everyone. So we just thought it'd be really helpful to have someone there listening with us. And it was, and that's why we decided to do it again. Just sort of takes the pressure off and gives you that other opinion from a whole sound perspective.
I think part of that is that as individuals in the quartet, you each have a different experience. So we auditioned some people who, you know, one or two of the quartet really felt they gelled with vocally, but wasn't providing support to all of us. And with that, yeah, without a recording or a fifth ear, it would have been quite hard to, I guess, to talk that over together, because you're having such different experiences. So as a, you know, as a bass, having someone who could fill out the sound and support me so I didn't feel so distant from the lead and tenor was really important. And, you know, you can audition some excellent voices that work really well with the kind of ping that Emma and Alex have, but then it would have felt very much like a 3-on-1. So yeah, there were definitely some of those conversations, and having the recordings at that stage kind of helped us all kind of get that external perspective on it and judge it as an overall experience, not just our individual feelings.
Nice. Cool. We've had a question from Mary Hill. Thank you for your question, Mary. I guess this is probably one for Claire and Roz. Any tips for potential auditionees for quartets?
It's, for me, it's similar to, you know, if you were going to go for a job interview, do your homework, look into what you're going to be doing, what you need to do, if it's learning your stuff, if it's knowing where you're going, if it's having a look about the people, to try and make you as calm as you can be. I mean, that the best thing for me on the day was just, I had this attitude of, it doesn't really matter. You know, I'm doing this for me. I'm doing it to prove that I can go and sing with these girls. And if it doesn't happen, I've had an experience out of it. I think if I'd have approached it of like, this is the be all and end all, and if I don't get this quartet, then that's the end, I would have been a lot more nervous. So it's trying to do whatever you can do as well. And you know kind of yourself best in terms of what can make you more calm on the day. That's the best thing you can do, is just to try and be calm and go in with an open mind to what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'd agree. Calm, open mind, have confidence in yourself, and don't try and be something that you're not. I think it's really easy to kind of fall into the trap of trying to be your absolute best, but these people need to see you at your norm as well. It's got to work for you regularly. And if you're going into a situation where you have to pretend to be something that you're not, then you're not going to be comfortable, and the lineup isn't going to last, basically. I think we mentioned a couple of things earlier in our presentation that are relevant here. So just to kind of recap and reinforce those, be bold and put yourself forward for opportunities, but it is very much about, does it work for you just as much as does it work for them? So it's not, don't feel that it's all about proving yourself. They need to prove themselves to you as well. And I had one more thought, but it's gone. Oh no, this is the issue with the live thing.
The live thing.
It'll come back to me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, while that comes back to you, I have one more question, and this might be an interesting one. So I have seen a few instances where a quartet has been formed, like by one person being like, I want a new quartet. I'm going to audition for the other three people. I'm going to hold auditions and get three people. And so imagine a world where, like, this awful world in which Nightfall hadn't happened. Would you as an individual person have like set up an audition process to find your quartet, or do you think that there are other better ways of doing that?
I actually kind of nearly did. When I actually joined Nightfall, just before that, I was actively looking for a quartet, and I put out some feelers with people that I knew, people who I got on with, who I thought I admired their voices, and I sort of, said, thinking about this, what do you think? I didn't actually turn into anything in the end, which worked out for the best for us and for them, I think. But Alex, I mean, how did you go about it? Because I think you were probably the first one to set up Nightfall.
Yeah, to be fair, I had looked in the chorus sort of more of a, your kind of obvious traditional method of getting quartet. And I had a few fun quartets, if you want to call them, from singing with people in chorus. But it sort of soon transpired that they kind of didn't want the same things that I wanted. So then, like you said, Roz, put a few feelers out. And our first baritone, Emma, was keen. And that kind of, there was someone else with me then to sort of think, we can try and find people. She knew a few more contacts than I did. We sort of reached out with our other contacts, and then that's how we sort of came across Emma. So in a way, yeah, I probably wouldn't have thought of auditioning for 3 other parts, because that's quite a task.
Almost feels like once you've got 2, you've got something going.
Yeah.
And you can then go out and you've got a bit of a confidence in numbers to go and find the other half of your quartet.
It's a bit like those card games. Sorry, I played games for Mary's birthday the weekend. So it's a bit like those card games where you have to like form sets of things. But if you have if you have 4 individuals, you don't know which way to go. But if you have 2 that work well, then you're trying to feed into that. So if you can find someone else who who you think you gel with both personality wise and vocally, then you've got something to build on. I think it's quite tricky as an individual, because you could go kind of any direction, and that can be quite daunting. I always kind of thought also that auditioning to sing with me as an individual, I feel quite uncomfortable about that concept. Whereas if there's 2 of you, then it's about finding the right fit to go into that. It doesn't feel quite as awkward.
And I think we had to do the audition because, you know, we'd got a baritone, we'd got Emma on the tenor, and we were actually struggling to find a bass. So the kind of only way was for auditions. If we'd have known a bass, if we'd have known Roz and said, "Oh, come and have a sing," and then we wouldn't have had to audition. But we didn't, so kind of led us down that route in a way.
And I don't think I would ever go out there and start. It's you know, I think I needed a massive kick from, so I've got another quartet, we're non-competing, we have fun. I needed the kick from them and the kick from my family to actually be brave enough to go for the audition myself. So it's, yeah, I'd need some support around me to kind of give me that shove. You know, yeah. I'd kind of rather kind of wait back here until something happens, but not something else.
Glad you didn't.
Yeah, I got a kick and told to go for it, so.
Nice. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so I think
I remembered my thing. Can I say my thing?
Go. So this, what was this question about?
It was Mary's question about tips for an auditionee.
Yes.
And I think as an auditionee, if it doesn't work out, it's really easy to take that personally. And I know we said it in our presentation, but it's so important that I wanted to reiterate it. Try not to take it personally, because there are so many things that need to fall into place to make a successful quartet lineup. And it's, yeah, that doesn't mean that you're not a lovely person. It doesn't mean that you're not a great singer, but it just might not be quite the right fit at that moment in time. You know, it's not just about what your voice is like, it's about your attitude towards quartetting. It's about what potential you have for development. It's about, you know, how well what your work attitudes are like, how well you're gonna gel at rehearsals and that kind of stuff. So there's so many different moving parts, and you as the auditionee won't know everything that the auditioners are thinking, and everything that they're hoping for the future. So try not to take it personally, because it could be a little factor that actually isn't a big reflection on you, that just didn't quite fit into place for you.
Yeah, great point. Okay, I think that's all of our questions. Before we sign off, Nightfall, if people watching this want to follow you, want to get in touch, where is the place to find you on the internet?
Facebook probably is the best place. We're all admins on there, so if you message us on Facebook, we'll respond on there. We also have an email address, which Emma will have to remind me of.
nightfallquartet@yahoo.com.
There we
Yahoo.
go.
Ooh.
Yahoo.
Okay.
But yeah, reach out to us on either of those platforms, or individually if you're friends with us, obviously, just ask. And we'd be more than happy to answer anything. I know that this is the kind of topic that won't be useful to everyone right now, but at some point, I mean, I know this is going to stay up on YouTube. So if at some point in the future you find yourselves, you know, in the position where you're auditioning on either side, then hopefully you'll be able to look back at this and find some tips. But if not, then yeah, do reach out to us whenever.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you to everyone who has been watching us live this evening on YouTube. It's been great to have you, and thank you for your questions. And thank you so much to Emma, Claire, Roz, and Alex, who are Nightfall Quartet. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting you this evening. So take care, everyone. And we hopefully will get to sing a tag maybe soon in person. But yeah, that's everything. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Peter.
Bye. Bye.